is the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast.
The old clock on the studio wall tells me it's time once again for the Celebrity Afterlife Report, the only show on the internet that gives you the up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. I am the Celebrity Medium, and no matter how many of these reports I do, I'm always surprised by what famous people in the next world get themselves up to. With endless time on their hands and few restrictions, people feel free to try new experiences. This show fills you in on who's doing what, with, and to whom, and how it all goes. Get ready for a peek at what life is like on the other side. You've probably heard me say on more than one occasion that just when you think things in the next world can't get crazier, they usually do. That is certainly the case with our first story on this edition of the report. Months ago, Donald Trump's father, Fred, was denouncing his son's run for the White House as a publicity stunt. In recent weeks, however, Fred has done a 180, as he now says that his son is the only person who can get America back on the right track. Just the other day, one of my longtime sources happened to run into Fred Trump on the street. He identified himself as a reporter for the Celebrity Afterlife Report, and according to the source, Trump Sr. seemed to have a lot to get off his chest. Fred asked the source to ask me to pass along the message that he was firmly behind Donald's campaign. He specifically wanted me to know that, according to him, everyone in the afterlife is completely for Donald. If you remember last week's show, however, you know that Fred had a nasty confrontation in a restaurant with a fellow diner who was most certainly not a fan of Donald's. He screamed at Fred and was physically carried out of the place by Fred's bodyguard. When my source brought up that incident, Fred dismissed it as the work of, quote, someone put up to it by that nasty woman Hillary, unquote. He kept insisting that his son was ahead in all the polls, which of course is not true, saying that he knew Donald is going to win, and demanding that my source tell me to repeat his words on this show so that people on the earthly plane will know that everyone in the next world is pulling for Donald. My source said that Fred started yelling at him, demanding that he promise that he would get me to deliver this message. Now, like everybody, I certainly have opinions on this election, but as a journalist, I will not take sides on the show. It's not my place to act as a conduit for messages about either candidate. My job is to just tell you what's going on in the afterlife, so I'm just repeating what I've been told. I guess at this point it's fair to say that people are getting as nutty over the election there as they are here. Comedian Kevin Meaney just arrived in the next world, and if he was at all concerned about finding work in showbiz there, he needed to have worried. Just moments after arriving, Meaney, a very funny man, was approached by fellow comic Joan Rivers. For over a year now, Joan has been co-hosting a show with famous fashion designer Oscar de la Renta called Street Style with Joan and Oscar. The two go around approaching random people on the sidewalk and critique their clothing to humorous effect. I'm told that over the course of the months he's been on the show, De La Renta has turned into a pretty funny sidekick to Joan, frequently delighting her by coming up with snarky comments about average people's outfits. It seems that as soon as she heard Meaney was transitioning to the afterlife, Joan decided he would make a great roving reporter for the show. Now, Kevin, I'm told, was intrigued by the idea and flattered that Rivers was approaching him about it. He took the job on the spot and appeared on his first episode of Street Style less than a day later. Now, sources tell me he is hilarious in the part, in which he ad-libs interaction with random pedestrians. Now, by all accounts, Kevin Meaney was much loved by his fellow comedians and fans, and it's really nice to see one of the good guys getting back in the saddle so quickly. Longtime listeners know that former New York Yankee player Babe Ruth is currently a morning drive shock jock on Heaven 107, one of the next world's most popular radio stations. Ruth, who hosts the Babe and His Bullpen show, is advertised as the man you love to hate and is considered by many to be the Afterlife's answer to Howard Stern. The Bambino has alienated many guests over his time on the air, and to that list, we can now add Jim Morrison. The former Doors singer has had his ups and downs in showbiz of late, but he seems to have hit his stride by turning his band, The Real Legends, into a hardcore rap outfit. Now, Jim appeared on the show the other morning, and from what I'm told, Ruth wasted no time in going on the offensive. Morrison is wearing his long hair and dreadlocks these days, and the Baseball Hall of Famer said it looked like a dirty floor mop before the rock star had even sat down. And things went downhill from there. Ruth accused Jim of ripping off black culture by trying to be a rapper. Morrison tried to respond, but Ruth wouldn't let him get a word in edgewise. Before they were 10 minutes into the interview, which was slated to go a full hour, Morrison told Ruth what he could do to himself and stormed out of the studio. Now, there is no equivalent to the FCC in the Afterlife, so dirty words on the air aren't a big deal, but from what my sources have told me, Morrison went on a rant before he walked out that would make a grown man blush. Ruth and his sidekicks seem to have found the incident hilarious and have been using cuts of Jim swearing frequently on their show since it happened. Lastly, many months ago, I broke the story that J. Edgar Hoover, the longtime director of the FBI, had undergone sexual reassignment surgery, changed his name, and married his former right-hand man at the Bureau, Clyde Tolson. She has been living happily as Mrs. Edith Tolson since then. When we last heard from her, she was greeting former Laugh-In star Judy Carn when she arrived in the next world. Edith shocked Judy by telling her she used to fantasize about being her when they were both on the earthly plane. The two have been close friends ever since then. Now comes word that the Tolsons have adopted a baby girl. They have named her Judy in honor of Carn, who is also her godmother. Now, it should be noted here that people who transition to the afterlife as children never mature and stay as kids for eternity, so adoption's a pretty serious commitment. Congratulations to the Tolsons on the new addition to their family. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report. Please join me back here next week when I'll have another roundup of up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. Please tell everyone you know that the report is available for free on iTunes, in the Google Play Store, and on K-Chung Radio, 1630 AM in Los Angeles. I am the Celebrity Medium. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast. To ask a question about your favorite deceased celebrity, call 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-369-3732.